Hello guys, and welcome to episode 4 of our Teamspeak tutorial series. So in this video we're finally going to do something that is actually going to help you while setting up your Teamspeak server. So first of all, what we want to do is that, again, as usual, we want to go to server groups in here, and in this video we're going to create two server admin groups. One is going to be for us. We're actually going to rename it right now. We're going to rename it to server owner, and that is going to be only for us as the server owner. However, as a server owner, you of course want to have some people that are going to be monitoring your TeamSpeak, that are going to be, banning people that are toxic and breaking the rules, stuff like that. So now, first thing that we want to do is that we want to go to group, and in here we want to change the icon. Before we actually do that, we want to make sure that the icon max file size is going to be -1, so that we won't be limited by the size of the icons. Now, you'll double click on the icon and you can see some remote icons in here and some local icons. The local icons are the ones that are provided by TeamSpeak on every single server that you start. The remote icons are the ones that you upload yourself. Now, the only thing you need to do is that you'll click on the server, right click on the server, you'll do view icons, which is going to get you into this menu, and you'll hit upload, and you can basically upload anything from your computer. Now, I'm going to use this pink admin icon for our server owner, and we're going to use like the green one for the administrator. Now, there are two ways of actually getting this to work. So first of all, we could either copy this group and then start decreasing all the powers that we see here, but that would take too much time. So what we're actually going to do is that we're going to create a new group. We're going to name him, let's say, TeamSpeak Administrator. And now this TeamSpeak Administrator group has only the needed group modify power, add power, and remove power, and it is ticked that the group is permanent. Now, what it means that the group is permanent? Well, if we would untick this, you can see that the group is now black. All these two groups are blue. If I'm going to tick this, it's going to be blue again. Now, if the group is permanent, it is going to stay on the person on his TeamSpeak UID as long as someone removes it. However, if the group wasn't permanent, as soon as the guy or as someone disconnects from the server, he is at that point going to lose the server group, and he needs to be given this group again when he joins. So that's it. Now, we want to do the very first thing we want to do is that we want to set some sort IDs. So sorting, this is basically how our groups will be sorted in here, and then also later in the server groups dialog. So as you can see, it is at the bottom, but however, we don't want the TeamSpeak administrator to be under guest. Now, so what we want to do, we're going to set the sort ID for the server owner to 1, because of course we're gonna be at the top, and the TeamSpeak administrator sort ID, always make sure that you don't have ticked show granted only, because at that point it's only showing the permissions that are granted. However, if you search for some permission and it's not granted, it's not going to show anything, so that's why. And we want to set the sort ID to 2. So as you can see, the sort ID is 1, here the sort ID is 2. Now, don't do the basic mistake of giving the sort numbers by 1, because you want to leave some space there. So let's say that we would want to have, like TeamSpeak moderators and TeamSpeak assistants and TeamSpeak helpers, in the future. So we want to keep some space in here. So we're going to reserve the space, let's say like 100. And so the server group normal, which we could rename to like verified guest, is going to have a sort ID of 100, and guest is going to have sort ID of 101. So that way they are sorted now. And then if we want to add, something, we have a lot of space for the new groups that are going to come in the future. Now, what I also like to do is to create some sorters or separators, however you want to call it. So let's say we want to do Teamspeak administration, or oh, it's too long. So we're just gonna do, we're not gonna do Teamspeak. We're gonna do TS administration. Now this TS administration group is going to have sort ID of 0. Actually, I forgot that 0 can be, so that way we're going to resort these groups. Teamspeak admin is going to be 3, server owner is going to be 2, and our very first group is going to be the TS administration group. Now, we don't want this group to be permanent because we don't want people to be assigning this, so we're going to untick the permanent group. Now, as you can see, it's black and it's greatly separating this. We can keep the needed group modify power to 75, needed power and remove power to 75. However, what I like to do is that I like to set this to 80 to make sure that no one, not even me, is assigning this server group, because this is not a server group. It's just a separator for us to make it look, good and sorted in the server groups dialog. Now, what we can do is now we can just basically copy this and we can create as many separators as we want. So we can create like guests in here, and let's say that the sort ID is going to be 99. At this point, you can see that we have TS administration, and we have server owner and Teamspeak admin, and in guests we have verified guest and guest. So now about the Teamspeak administrator. First thing that we want to do is that we want to give it some icon. So in here you can see icon ID. So we're going to assign it this green shield. That is going to be our Teamspeak administrator for this server. And now we're going to start giving it the powers. So first of all, you need to decide who is going to have this server group and what you want this server group to be able to do. So let's say the Teamspeak administrator is going to be the highest group right after the server owner. So at that point, what I would do is that I would give it all powers to 70. So group modify power, actually he doesn't need that because, like I said, no one else is going to be manipulating those server groups that we set up. But let's just give it to him because why not? So we're going to set it to 70. Group member add power is going to be 70, and group member remove power is also going to be 70. Group member add power and remove power, you want to keep those two the same or almost at all times, because if someone, let's say, accidentally gives someone a server group, at that point you just want to be able to, make him eligible to remove the group. So that is set to 70. Now, needed group modify power is 75, and our group modify power is 75, which means that we can modify the server group however we want, which is exactly what we are doing right now. Needed group member add power and remove power is set to 75 both, which means that only people with group member add power and group member remove power of 75 can actually add or remove this group, which on this Teamspeak server is only us, the server owner. Permission modify power. Permission modify power is going to be set to 70, and definitely don't tick ignore permission modify power. We don't want that. So that's about giving and removing. Now that's set, and what we want to do next, we definitely don't want we don't want anyone except for ourselves or a Teamspeak developer group to create new server groups or channel groups, and we definitely don't want them to be able to manipulate with server query. Always remember, server query is something that you should only keep for yourself and the Teamspeak developer, no one else. Delete, it's the same with create. We don't want people to be creating or deleting existing server or channel groups. So that is about it. Now we're gonna touch a little bit on client. Again, in information, that is nothing for him. This is where the fun begins. So client kick from server power, we're going to add that to 70, and kick from channel power is going to be 72. However, what we don't want is that we don't want TeamSpeak admins to be kicking themselves from the TeamSpeak, because that's just, that can be considered minging. So what we want to do is that we want to set the needed kick from server power and from channel power to 75. That way only us as the server owner can actually kick the TeamSpeak admin from the server or the channel. Client ban from server power is going to be 70, and needed client ban power is going to be 75 again, because only us, the server owner, can actually ban that guy. Same goes for move power. So actually their move power is going to be 70, needed is going to be 75. Complaint power and needed complaint power. Now, the complaint power is something that you definitely don't want on your TeamSpeak server, because complaining actually auto-bans people, and it's only making a mess, and you don't want that, so just leave it as it is. Same goes with all the complaints. List of ban rules, you don't need that. Usually set your rules by, typing them in the default channel or something like that. Most of TeamSpeak servers are using this. Now, next thing that we want to do is that we want to set the maximum ban time, which is going to be soon. But first, we actually will set the private text message power to 70. Send text message to server. Now, it depends on what type of server you're hosting. So let's say if you're hosting a community server, it is a crossplay server. So for example, you have people playing Counter-Strike, you have people playing Rainbow Six, you have people playing Arma 3, and you just want to, you want to let all of them know that something is going to happen with the TeamSpeak, and you know that you are not going to do it, but your TeamSpeak administrators are going to be doing it for you, then give them this permission. If this is ticked, they can send messages to TeamSpeak server. If not, well, then of course anyone should be able to type in the channels themselves. Now, send text messages to channel, of course. Send text messages to offline clients. I mean, usually people don't even check their offline inbox, so this is not really something that you need to do, so I would just leave it. Client talk power. Now, talk power is not only serving as a number that you need to be able to speak in a channel, so let's say the default channel, here you have needed talk power. Let's say that we would set this to 70.
Channel edited.
At this point, only people with the talk power of 70 or above are able to speak in this channel. But what talk power also does is that it sorts clients in the channel. So for example, if I have a talk power of 75 as a server owner, I will be at the very top of the channel. And TeamSpeak admins with the talk power of 70 are going to be under me. If there are going to be TeamSpeak moderators with talk power of 65, they are going to be under them. So that is how you sort people in channels. Needed client talk power, this is something that is kept for channels, so completely ignore this. Client poke power. Now, again, this depends on what kind of TeamSpeak server you are hosting. Because if you are hosting, let's say, just a server for a Euro Truck Simulator clan or something like that, you can give them poke power. It doesn't matter. However, if you're hosting like a big community server, poking can be pretty annoying. Not only that, but poking can actually crash your TeamSpeak. So there is actually a program called PokeBot, and the stage 3 is actually going to send you so many pokes that it is going to force you to close your TeamSpeak through your task manager, and you can basically crash someone's PC remotely. So be careful with this, but I'm just going to set it to 70, because TeamSpeak administrators, usually when someone gets into this position, they are not going to be trolling. Grant talk power. So what this does is basically that if there is a needed talk power in here, all the clients that doesn't have the talk power are going to be muted. However, so let's say just for demonstration, I'm going to set it to 80. As you can see, I have insufficient talk power. However, what I can do is I can right click on myself and I can grant myself talk power. And
talk power revoked.
This power determines if this group is going to be able to give people talk power in channels that they don't have talk power in. So that is how grant talk power works. Whisper power, basically whispering, what you can do is that you can whisper to other channels. What you could possibly do is that you could speak in all channels at once using the whisper function. I'll touch on whisper function in future videos. For now, we'll just leave it as it is. Next up, we have some modifying. So modify all client description, modifying all. You can do modify all. This basically does nothing except for change description, and you can do like change your description. Now your description, my description says Hans. That's pretty much it. And modify all client description basically lets you modify descriptions of other people on TeamSpeak. If it is something inappropriate, at that point TeamSpeak admins should be able to remove that. So yes, why not? Client permission modify power. This is something that you definitely don't want to give to any of your TeamSpeak administrators or whoever else. This lets them access the client permissions. Now, what client permissions do? They are basically like server groups. However, they are bound to your client, to your person, to your UID, and they are basically you cannot see them until you click on someone and check their client permission yourself, or you can see it through a server query. However, if you don't know how to operate the server query, the only way for you to find out is to right click on the client, go to their client permissions, and see if they have any permissions. As you can see, I don't have any client permissions on me. However, this is something that can really harm your TeamSpeak. If someone assigns himself client permissions and he intentionally wants to hurt your TeamSpeak server, with client permissions, he can do a lot of mess. So definitely stay away from this if you're talking about TeamSpeak administrator. You as a server owner should actually have client permissions on yourself to prevent people from banning you from the TeamSpeak fast. So let's say someone gets access to your TeamSpeak, or someone maybe steals an account of your TeamSpeak admin. Well, your first line of defense is that your TeamSpeak admin doesn't have the power to actually do anything to you. However, if he was able to somehow, then you would still have your client permissions, which would be your second line of defense. Then you could have, like, let's say, channel client permissions. That would be your third line of defense. I'm going to touch a little bit more on this in future videos, where I'll be talking about how to secure your TeamSpeak and stuff like that, and we'll get into it. Now, let's continue with our TeamSpeak admin. So definitely stay out of this. Max idle time. Now, this is something that you don't want to set, because let's say if we would set this to 1, it means that if someone stops speaking, it only takes 1 second, and then he's going to get automatically kicked from the TeamSpeak. This is a huge mistake that people do. Sometimes they just right click and they do add permission group. This is basically going to add all the groups into here, and it's also going to set max idle time. So, which means if they're going to be AFK for just 1 minute and 15 seconds, they'll get kicked from the server, automatically kicked. There is just no way to go around that, and so you don't want to set that. Max avatar file size. Well, you would like to set this to -1 so that people could upload their own avatars or GIFs or whatever they want. Max channel subscriptions. This is something that you want to set to -1 always, because what this does is this defines how many channels you are able to subscribe to. Subscribing to channels basically means this. So this is how it looks when, I'm not sure if I cannot unsubscribe from the default channel. Okay, but if I was to create a new channel, so let's just create a channel real fast, make it permanent, and
Channel
create it.
created.
And now, if I'm going to unsubscribe from the channel, you can see that it misses this tick in there. At this point, if I'm unsubscribed from the channel, I cannot see the users in the channel. If I'll subscribe to it again, I can see. Now, you can basically make some kind of invisible channels by editing the subscribe permissions. So let's say that the needed subscribe power would be 70. At this point, anyone who doesn't have the power of 70 or higher cannot see into the channel. So if I were to set it to 80, hit apply, I wouldn't be able to see into the channel if I didn't have, of course, a bigger subscribe power. So that is about it. Now,
Channel
we'll
deleted.
get into channels in future videos. So just leave this to -1 so that people can subscribe to as many channels as they want, and then we'll let the channels determine if people can or cannot subscribe to those channels. Client is priority speaker. Definitely not, because this would mean that anyone with this group has priority speaker. Skip channel group permissions. This is something that you don't want to do, because what basically this does is that it skips all the channel groups. Sometimes it can be good and it can fix a lot of broken TeamSpeak somehow, but it's kind of a fix that brings new problems, and it usually brings more new problems than it fixes. So yeah. Force push to talk. Again, this is something that is going to annoy you if you don't know anything about TeamSpeak, and you're just going to grant all the permissions to yourself. If you tick this, it is going to force you to use push to talk. Definitely you don't want that. Now, ignore bans. No one, again, no one except for you yourself as a server owner should have ignore bans. Because at that point, it doesn't matter what needed ban power they have. If they have ignore bans, you just cannot ban them until you remove this yourself. So that's a no-no. Now let's just go through all these reserve slots. Basically, what you can do is that you can edit your virtual server, and you can do reserve slot like 2.
You edited the server.
Hit apply, and then you can see current clients 1 out of 32 minus 2 reserve. Basically, the server right now can take up to 30 people, and 2 slots are always reserved. You definitely experience this when you were to join a community server in like CS:GO or TF2, and there were still some free slots. However, it told you that they are like VIP reserved. Well, this is it. This determines if the server group can use reserved slot or not. Again, it depends on the kind of community that you're hosting, if you want people to be able to use them or not. Use channel commander. Well, channel commander basically gives you this orange bubble. I'm going to touch a little bit more on that in future videos. I don't think they actually need it. Request talk power, no. Delete other client avatars. You want this because if someone has an inappropriate avatar, you want your TeamSpeak admins to be able to deal with that. Sticky client, well, I guess I'm not sure if this is the same one, because TeamSpeak actually renamed some of the permissions. So yeah, this is basically client is sticky permission, which makes you ineligible to disconnect from the channel that you're in because you are stickied. So we don't want that. Ignore sticky client permission. You don't need that. And now the file transfer. So basically what it does, every channel has a file browser. You can upload or download from this file browser if you have the file transfer power. It also the actual channel has some needed browse, upload, download, rename, and direction create powers. Now you can leave them all to 0 if you make sure that no one can upload here. Seriously, guys, I don't know why would you use TeamSpeak as as something that you would upload things to when you have a lot of sites where you can actually upload stuff. So definitely don't use TeamSpeak. This is like the easiest way to slow down your TeamSpeak server, especially if it's being hosted by a very cheap provider that is running his servers on old computers and stuff. So that is our TeamSpeak administrator. Now in here, you definitely don't want to give him anything from the global because that's all server query based. Same with the virtual server. You don't want them to be able to delete privilege keys or to create new privilege keys. Remember, privilege keys are those kind of things that you can create, and it basically gives you the group. Also, keep in mind that they actually wouldn't be able to create a server owner privilege key because you can only create the privilege key that you yourself have the add power to. So if I was to be a Teamspeak administrator on this server, I would only be able to create privilege key for like verified guest. So that's it. Now, so that's for the administration. Again, anything with the server query you should not give to anyone. Now, this is about modifying virtual server. So basically, your server, you can do some stuff like renaming your server, giving it nicknames. This is good for optimizing the search engine and stuff like that. What you can do actually is you can go to connections, you can go to server list, and here you can see the country. You can basically apply this filter, and it's going to show you a list of TeamSpeaks. That's it. Now, back to our TeamSpeak admin. Again, you don't want your TeamSpeak admins to be messing with your server, so don't give them this. About the channel. Now, this really depends, again, on what type of server you're hosting. If you want your TeamSpeak admins to be able to create new channels, you just give them the permissions to create subchannels, permanent channels, and basically all the channels that you can see here, so that they can create channels with description, topic, password, and stuff like that. You don't want them to be able to create default channel. Default channel is going to stay as it is always. And yeah, that's pretty much it for creating. Now, moving channels again. All the permissions are pretty much self-explanatory, like I said, because they are literally telling you what they do. So move channels, it's a tick permission. So if it's ticked, people can move channels. If it's not, people can't. It is that simple. Now change channel type to default. Here, someone can create default channel. He cannot do that. However, if we were to, shit, where'd it go? Blind. I completely lost where. Oh yeah, channel. Sorry for that. So he cannot create default channel. However, he could change channel type to default if he had this permission. So he could just choose some channel and say, hey, this is going to be our new default channel. Modify channel name, topic, description, password. Why not? That's some basic moderation stuff. Channel modify power. Now, the channel modify power is usually 75 when you create a channel. So if you give him 75 of channel modify power, it means that he can edit all the channels that are on the TeamSpeak. If you give him 70, then you need to make sure that all the channels that you want the TeamSpeak admin to be able to edit are going to have a decreased amount of needed modify power. He doesn't need to modify channel codec quality. This is basically the audio. So over here you can see you can set the audio to really high or really low. If you set the quality to 0 just for fun, it really sounds bad. Next up we have some deleting of the channels. You don't need that. And you also want to make sure that they can join permanent, semi-permanent, and temporary channels. We can also do ignore channel passwords and max clients. So what you can do is that you can create red channels. We are going to call them red channels. Basically, you set the max users to limited, and you're going to set it to 0. And you're going to set the join power to like 75.
Error.
Invalid channel flags. Okay. So permanent join power is going to be 75, limited.
Channel created.
And we're going to create it. Now you can see test channel. It is a red channel.
Channel switch.
We can join it, and if like let's say that you want this to be like administration channel, so that only your TeamSpeak admins can join it. At this point, you're going to set the join power to 70. You're going to set the subscribe power to 70. And the modify power to 70 so that they can also modify it. Max user to limited, hit apply. And at this point, only people that have join power and subscribe power of 70. Join power can join, subscribe power can see into the channel, and they can actually bypass, you can see ignore channel max clients, which is this. max users, so it's set to 0. However, they are ignoring this permission, so they can still join the channel. And if I were to set a password,
Channel edited.
you can see ignore channel password, so they don't even need password. Now, channel join power is going to be 70, subscribe power 70, and description power 70. What you want to do when you're setting a server group is to make sure that all of the powers stay kind of the same, so that you know, like, your TeamSpeak admin has powers 70, your TeamSpeak moderator is going to have like 65, and your TeamSpeak assistant or helper is going to have like 60. So that's it. Channel minimum def you can set to -1. Channel permission modify power, we're gonna set that to 70. And yeah, this is pretty much it. So our admin can kick from server, kick from channel, can actually ban people. So if we look at this, max time for ban rules in seconds. So let's say you want to make sure that they can only ban for 1 minute. If you want them to be able to ban for 1 minute, it's 60 seconds. If you want guys to be able to ban for like 14 days or something like that, you're actually going to bring up your calculator. You're going to set here seconds to days, and you're going to set days to seconds, and let's say 14 days, and here you can see it's 1,209,600 seconds. You're going to copy that, put it in, and as of now, TeamSpeak admins can ban for 2 weeks. That's it. You can actually do view list of ban rules so that they can see the ban list. And yeah, as of now, we've set our TeamSpeak admin that is powerful enough to moderate our TeamSpeak, however, not powerful enough to hurt our server owner. So that's it for this video. If you have any questions,
Channel deleted from the channel.
If you have any questions, please put them below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe so that you don't miss any new videos. And if you would like to support me, you can actually see the link to my Patreon in the description. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.